Welcome to the Empowered Homes podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to be a resource to connect church and home by growing strong families.
Hey, this is Bobby. Today on the show, we have a guest with us, Will Mancini. We recorded this episode at our Empowered Homes Family Ministry Conference, and we were live, so you'll hear some people in the background. It's a really fun show. We interview Will Mancini, who wrote a new book. It's called Clarity Spiral. This Clarity Spiral, the 4 breakthrough practices to find the one thing you're called to do. So personally, how do we live out our calling with clarity? Will is a fantastic thinker, and he will challenge you personally. As we grow and want to live out our walk and our calling, we must understand who we are and have a clear understanding of that. So if you want more information about Will, you can go to willmancini.com or find more information on empoweredhomes.org.
Hey, Bobby, it's great to be here. Love being at the conference.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We just got rolling. There's breakouts going on right now. You got a few this afternoon and this morning, and we're so thankful to have you.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Will, if no one's ever heard the name Will Mancini, who are you?
Yeah, great. Yeah, I'm a pastor, really, who through the process of coming to a church here and being a part of a church plant in Houston over the years, actually had just a growing interest in the word clarity, the ideas of vision. And what does it look like? Initially, Bobby, it was as we were kind of a Willow Creek model church, a couple decades ago, when we were figuring out who we were going to be when we grew up as a little baby church plant. I just got fascinated with that whole lexicon of mission, vision, values, DNA, ministry, philosophy, all that stuff. And right at the time when we were doing what we were doing, it was really the height of what I call the cloning conference era. I mean, there were more church leaders in like the year 2000 going to conferences, trying to adopt, and plug and play another person's model of ministry. And something inherently felt like not fully like optimized with that. I thought, I think God has actually a little better plan for individuals to develop their own ministry model. And so that's how the Big Bang started for me back in 2001 when I left pastoring full time to kind of do this coaching consulting gig.
That's awesome. So tell us a little about your organization too.
Yeah, well, the organization I started for the church's organizational work is Oxano. So that was started in 2004. It's a Greek word that means to cause to grow that Luke uses when he describes the church in Acts. So that's been a fun run of working with a team of guys, and we're a nationally based nonprofit firm that does visionary planning process work with churches. So your team actually goes into churches to help them kind of have this conversation to find clarity and vision and DNA, and that's huge. Yeah, we use a little master tool called the Vision Frame, as you know, and a planning tool called the Horizon Storyline. And we usually work 6, 9, 12 months with church teams to really fully kind of experience the breakthrough on naming, who they are as a church, where they're going next as a church, and really, it takes some time to really implement that and integrate that into the complexity of church life. There's so many moving parts, and so much of what happens out there in the name of clarity or vision is a quick weekend retreat, and you might have a new poster or a new sermon series, but you don't really have a new culture forming.
That shift. And man, if you're listening and you're a church leader, just how many times have you been in a meeting and you've thought, man, we're just living week to week. There's no horizons, what you said. There's no what's the big picture? What's the frame of I'm doing everything and filtering it through. And so what you do in helping churches create that is just vital for us to.
So true.
For health, for just team dynamics. So we're not going why are we doing this? If we know the vision out there, it should be easy for us to say, this is why we're doing it, right? Everything, every program, every event, everything that we have, because we see what's in front of us. And so many churches, and I talk to guys and girls all over that we go to staff meeting and I just wish there was more clarity. I wish there was more. And that's what you're organization will come in and help churches do that, which is incredible, man.
If you think about it, most pastors will spend more time in sermon prep in 4 weeks than they will spend on vision work in 5 years. And it's just such a missing opportunity, Bobby, you know, out there. Once you get on the other side, once a leader knows what it's like to have that crystal form clarity and have the team really dialed into that, it's like having a steering wheel in a car where you didn't have a steering wheel before. Wow. And ministries, you know, pastors or ministers will go to a new context all of a sudden, and they'll be like, "Oh my goodness, where's my steering wheel? This place has no clarity."
Yeah, that's good. And helping, you know, the pastors help lead their staff with that clarity too. It creates a bigger vision for longevity of team members and the staff culture. But not only the staff, but it's for the people we minister to. Like when you have your church that understands the vision and they catch on to it and they're repeating things to you, it's powerful. Like they get it. They're all in, whatever that is. And sadly, there's a lot of churches that are just kind of going week to week and just with no real clarity. So we could talk all about that all the time. I wanted to talk specifically with you while you're here at the conference. We're talking about this personal clarity. And how do we, you know, as leaders or just as parents or anybody listening individually, you talk about markers, right? Or marks of, you have, how many marks are that you have personal?
You're absolutely right. That's the language we use all the time. So with every church we work with, we have literally kind of a customized, they all articulate, each church we work with identifies really what kind of disciple are they designed to produce, and they'll have their own articulation of the life marks of that. With the personal clarity stuff, we've taken, as I was sharing with you earlier before we started the podcast, you know, the entire toolbox that we use for organizations. We've now been about 5 years into this work. We've designed it for individuals. We call it gospel-centered life design. So you can come through a very robust process, develop a personal vision frame, develop a personal life plan. And when we think of the marks side of the vision frame in that toolbox, we talk about a life score. And we actually encourage people to have 4 of those when you unpack our toolbox. So we would describe ultimate clarity at an individual level as having a life call statement, a life core statement, 4 core values, life steps, and life score. So you can hear the mantra, have life call, life core, life steps, and life score. 4 clarity pieces that really inscribe your sense of who did God create me to be? What is my special assignment on earth as a human being? So
the life call, let's camp on that for just a few minutes of, unpacking, is every person, like if I'm just a parent, maybe I'm a stay-at-home mom listening, do I have a life call?
Yeah,
I'm not a stay-at-home mom.
Love that question. Yeah. So I would say absolutely. Every single person has not just a life call, but a specific life call or a special assignment from God. Now, that is important to differentiate from the common call. So when someone, Bobby, says to me, "Yeah, I know my life call. I'm going to glorify God, or I want to be a follower of Jesus." Yeah. I say, "Fantastic. You know the common call of God to all human
Everybody.
life."
Yeah.
But I believe in kind of the problem statement that I give my life to solving is that really most believers have a special assignment from God or a specific calling and don't realize it. They've never named it. They've never really attended to it. And so what we want to do is take them through, I believe with the right tools, a little bit of time, some coaching, you can have substantial clarity on really the arc or trajectory of what God put you on earth to do with your life. And so that's what we're trying to do and name in that particular toolbox that we call Younique. You spell it with a Y-O-U.
Gotcha.
N-I-Q-U-E, yeah.
So that life call, I mean, and if you're a single or stay-at-home mom, like don't hear me say anything negative. But, my wife, she stays at home. And one of the things that we talk about often, and we have, and I think it's gotten better as we've just grown together, but she would say often, like, all I am is mom and Bobby's wife. And I'm like, no, God has something greater for you. And so, thinking about that call, what just give me an example of anybody, just the generic, simple example of that.
Then that's such a great example. We see breakthrough, in 20 somethings, 40 somethings, 60 somethings. One of the biggest storylines or narratives from our Life Younique work, which by the way is, happening in churches all across America, are doing this life planning or gospel-centered life design. But what we see the 30-something, 40-something moms that stay at home, they have a completely new horizon and viewpoint on their life through this. So what we do is we have a sweet spot tool, Bobby, where you walk through 6 tools to look at your ability, 6 tools to look at your passion, what you're really passionate about, and we have 6 tools to look at your ideal context. And a lot of times for a stay-at-home mom, to use that as an example, there is you're not necessarily changing your what as much as you're looking at it through a new why. And you can begin to pull back on your life and do some of the same activities with a completely different, motivational perspective. Let me illustrate. The CEO of Younique, her name is Kelly Comwisher. She puts a lot of time and energy into our kind of ministry training organization, but she also, loves being a mom and has 2 teenagers at the house. When we go through the first step of doing special calling, is you look at all those sweet spot kind of ingredients, and we have this really fun tool. We call it a kind of your 2-word sweet spot summary, and we boil all of the inventory of your life down to 2 words. And what we do is to make sure we get generic out of it, is we lead with like a kind of a template, so you can't name stuff generically. So we say, you exist to honor God and help others by. Like everyone's special assignment from God is going to honor God and it's going to help other human beings. So we just kind of get that. You can't say serve others. You can't say love God, love
so
people.
It's already in there.
You got to get all that generic out. Yeah. So for Kelly, her 2 words are empowering momentum. That's not her life call statement. That's like a lens through which she begins to look at her life.
Okay.
Another mom I know, her name is Susan. Her 2 words are designing enjoyment. And I could go thinking of Kim as a stay-at-home mom. Her 2 words are intentionalizing integration. And those words sound like, those aren't like coffee table talk, but that's like a delivery when you're in the process. And then from there, you actually articulate a life call statement that you would share with your friends or at a coffee shop. So Kim's got that very kind of quirky, gets a lot of intentional ideas are all synthesized and summarized in the words intentionalizing integration. But her life call is helping people make every moment matter. And she has a very specific way of thinking about how she goes about doing that. I can see my wife from here, Bobby, who's over there at our Oxano table. And Romy's 2 words is expressing compassion. And because we're at a family conference, I can talk about my parents' special calling. My dad is about restoring integrity. My mom's words are lifting life. I have 4 children. 3 are adults, one's a 2-year-old. So I know my adult children's ideas. Abby's all about simplifying connection. Joel is all about animating truth, and Jacob is about activating growth. And that all kind, all the whole toolbox that we work on comes from my 2 words of applying essence. And these are just kind of fun ways to begin naming it's not naming your job. It's not naming, one thing, one season in your life or a project you might be working on. But I have today about 5 different income streams, and I work with different organizations, and you could look at that and go, wow, that's really complex. But for me, it's not, because they're just different vehicles or ways that I apply essence. So that's my 2 words. My life call statement is helping make a life of more meaningful progress, more accessible to every believer.
So in that life call, would you say those 2 words is clarifying with in your toolbox? I'm sure it's all in there too, but like just the different giftings that you have and the different tools that God has already put inside of you. You're just naming something to give it life. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely, yeah. What if you think about when you say naming something to give it life, I love that phrase because it reveals really kind of our divine design. When Adam is created, he's told to increase, multiply, fill the earth, have dominion, subdue it. And the first act of his authority and power that God gave him to exercise becomes an act of naming. Wow. He names the animals. And I remind, whether you're mom, dad, whether you're a church leader, as an influencer, as a co-creator with God, your first tool is a word. It's what are you saying? How do you describe and name the most important things in your life? It's not, your first tool is not a wheel, a flint, or a hammer. It's a word. And that's how Adam discharges his authority and power in the universe, just in his godlike image. When God discharges power, he speaks as well. So,
that'll preach. That's good right there. So going off of the first mark of the calling, and the second one is what?
So we talk about life core, and in our process, you articulate your top 4 core values or core convictions that reveal your character and guide your life decisions. So we just have such a great time with people, taking them through to kind of look at their story. Most people, experience their story, but they don't really interpret it and mine out of it what God has been doing. So much of what we're doing is just helping people park some margin time and really, with some guided help and great questions, just go back and name what God's been doing in their lives.
Yeah, because correct me if I'm wrong, but just thinking about understanding those core values, it helps you, one, kind of filter a lot of things in life, and really it helps you say no to some stuff. Like this is kind of sideways energy, if you will use that term, or this isn't really what we're about. So it kind of solidifies of going, all right, if these are my core values, like as a parent, for me to raise my kids, then if I have an issue that is maybe out of bounds and I'm spending so much energy and effort on that, that's not really what our family's about. And so it kind of brings it back into the target of what we're doing. And that's huge personally too. I think, so many times we let the enemy tell us who we are instead of believing who God says we are, and that sideways energy gets interrupted. And so we got to, having those core values is huge. And so many people, what would you say, like, I'm just thinking, because I've kind of processed this, me and my wife have gone through this stuff, but how many would you say if I asked just a random person on the street, hey, do you know your core values? Like, what would be the percentage of people that could say, yeah, actually here they are? Like,
oh gosh, you might get a rambling response from maybe 5 or 10% of the population, but you would not get a thoughtful, crystallized response from, you're going to get that less than 1% is going to have an actual thoughtful, articulated response.
Yeah, that's good.
But to pick up on that idea, just to illustrate how powerful the values are powerful for macro big life decisions, but they're powerful on an everyday basis. My brother a couple of years ago is a military doctor, and he was trying to make a big fork in the road decision about whether he's going to stay in the military, get out of the military. And he'd been wrestling through this thing for 18 months. And we were just at my house, at a probably Thanksgiving, after Thanksgiving dinner, and having some extra turkey. And we just went through a little values discovery. And in a couple hours, we had articulated some key values. And he literally was able to look through the filter of those values. And the decision was not just a little bit clear, the fog was just completely lifted. His decision was made, and 18 months of kind of wandering and wondering was just totally clarified through that process. But that's a big thing, but it happens every day, whether it's a tension in your home, maybe with your spouse. And a lot of times it's not like a right or wrong. It's like, hey, I'm looking at it through this values perspective, and you're looking at it through this values perspective. So just the ability to unclog some of those tensions by naming values can be really, really powerful.
Man, that's awesome. So we got the call, then you have the core, and then next is what?
We have what we call life steps and life score. And I mention them both because they kind of go hand in hand.
Okay.
Hand in hand. So
let's unpack those.
So imagine having, when you're driving your car, you can look down on a dashboard and you can immediately get a sense of, okay, everything's going okay right here. And we do the same thing. We create a dashboard for your life. We do that through a very creative tool we call Storyline. So you basically imagine having a dashboard where you name the 4 storylines of your life, and then we have a really cool kind of biblical assessment of how are you doing in each of those storylines. So to give you an example, I'll just share the names of my storylines. Again, we take time to unpack this. So my faith and personal storyline, I call it my beloved son storyline. My family storyline is I call it my central circle storyline. My work vocational storyline, I call my Olympic contribution. And then I have a 4th storyline that I call my epic adventure storyline. So I look at my life call through these 4 threads or 4 predominant themes in my life, or these 4 storylines. And in our toolbox, what you do is you have a biblical weekly review. So kind of fitting in with Sabbath and the worshiping pattern of God's people, you actually just review your life plan, and you review it through those 4 storylines. Now, the life steps are a little tool we use. And when you see this all on a piece of paper, Bob, it's incredibly elegant and simple, but basically what we do is we have a way of naming kind of one area of emphasis that we call a life step in each of those 4 storylines. So at any given time, I'm looking at what are the 4 best next steps to take in this case, my devotional life with God, my home life with my family, my work life, and in my, what I call my adventure storyline, which is kind of a summary of everything happened in my life. And so every 90 days, I write down 4 new steps I want to take in each of those storylines. It's a very simple life planning technique that's part of this vision frame. So I have a life call, 1 big idea, life core values, 4 life steps at a time, and then 4 storylines that I'm living my life through. And that becomes a snapshot of this vision frame for your personal life.
It sounds like so complex, but yet so simple and powerful, man. Like,
well, here's what happens most of the time. People, all the world lives either underplanned or overplanned. Like, you either don't have goals and you haven't thought through kind of who you are, or you get excited, you go on a weekend retreat, or you get a new tool or a book and you get really excited and you kind of do a little blitz and you write down a bunch of goals or a bunch of things you want to do, but it's too much too fast. So we say it's simple to make things complex, right? But it takes a complex process to get really to great simplicity. So basically, we take people through either a 12-week course or a day and a half, experience to build that vision frame that I just described. And if you do that well, it sounds like a lot, but it's actually the simplest life plan I know on 1 sheet of paper of all the life planning methodologies I've studied. So it's pretty cool.
Man, so good. Well, Will, thank you for your time and just being here at the conference. Just excited for you to jump in and pour into our leaders and the churches that we have here. So if I'm a ministry leader or a parent or really anybody, what's the best way to get more information about Oxano or anything with you?
Yeah. Well, I have a blog at willmancini.com and really work with 4 different organizations right now. So my Clarity tools are kind of distributing through some different brands, but you can see all those brands. They're Oxano, Life Younique, a new thing called Denominy, and I work with the Slingshot team as well. So you can learn more about getting tools and resources through those organizations at the one site of willmancini.com.
Perfect. And book coming out?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for asking. It's the book on this clarity process for the individual is coming out in first week of January. It's called Younique. Designing the life God dreamed for you. Yeah. So it's kind of how to be a co-creator with God, and it's His dream for you, but you've got to proactively design it. So we say it's your call. It's your calling, but it's your call. Are you going to step into it or not? So
that's awesome.
Excited about that, and really, excited to be here. Just to mention to the listeners of we work with about 400 churches a year at Oxano. I've been doing this work 18 years full time, and I love what Kingsland and Empowered Homes is doing. And is literally one of the top modeling leaders and churches in the country. It's not just doing phenomenal family ministry, but it's really a model of how to do everything what I believe in and what we talk about through these organizations. You guys are doing a unbelievable job. So it's such an honor to be here and see the fruit of your clarity, your culture, the hard work you guys are doing as a leading family ministry church in the country.
It's a joy. We love it, and it's awesome. So more information, willmancini.com. Thank you for being here, man.
Hey, it's great to be here, Bobby. Awesome. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Empowered Homes podcast. For more content and information to connect church and home, please visit empoweredhomes.org.